The Nifty 50, or Fast 50, it's a nickname for what most photographers consider a non-negotiable, absolutely essential member of any snapper's toolkit. Hello again, I am Blunty, and I've got the niftiest of 50s to review for you today. So, the Nifty 50, praised for its natural feeling level of perspective compression and highly versatile focal length field of view, a 50mm prime lens with a nice bright fast aperture is both wonderful for those learning the craft of photography and for seasoned pros. Most of us wouldn't be without one in our kit. So, meet the brand new Sigma 50mm F1.4 Art Series lens, a very highly anticipated stack of glassware that has had many a DSLR shooter salivating with expectation. And it's a Sigma, so naturally you get the usual Sigma value here, really nice padded pouch and a lens hood that comes with as well. And this 50mm lens promises more than a run-of-the-mill Nifty 50 lens does. Sigma made some bold claims during the announcement of this lens. Things like they were aiming to not only eclipse the performance of standard Canon and Nikon high-end 50mm lenses, but they were aiming so high they wanted to be as good as, if not better than, the $4,000 plus worth of Zeiss Otis lens. A lens widely praised as being the best in its class by a wide margin, and Sigma are claiming to match that performance at a quarter of that cost. That's bold, that's aggressive, and I'll be damned if that's not exactly what they've delivered. Now, I've not tested it directly against that cripplingly expensive Zeiss glass, but I have seen a few other people that have done careful lab tests, and yes, it's a damn close match. The Zeiss edges it out still, but not by much it seems. And as for the Canon and Nikon standards, yeah, it seems like Sigma just torpedoed those guys. But on its own merits, how does it perform? In a word, wonderfully. Now, all of the other reviews I've seen to date have tested this on a full-frame camera, which is sensible, it's a full-frame lens, but given that far more end users, far more of you people out there watching this right now actually own and shoot with an APS-C crop sensor DSLR, I went out into the world and tested it on my crop frame Canon body to see how well it dances on this more common ground. Now, as a bit of hardware, the lens feels lovely to use. It's got Sigma's new premium feeling finish, the construction is very high class, the focus ring is lovely and wide and grippy and super smooth, and it's just a pleasure to use. It is unusually large for a 50mm lens though, and quite heavy, heavier than you'd expect anyway, but not so much that it's made it difficult to use or drastically misbalances a handheld camera or anything. And its size and heft are thanks to using a much more sophisticated optical design and element count than most other 50mm lenses. And as for the results, well, they're utterly lovely. Colour is rich and true, while contrast is punchy, but without being overbearingly so. You've got autofocus via its ultrasonic motor, which, yes, if you're using the on-board mics on your camera for whatever stupid, idiotic reason, you will hear in your video. But an external shotgun mic solves that issue instantly. And really, and I don't want to be snobbish about this, but you shouldn't be using your on-board mics on your DSLR. They're all awful. You've also got a full-time manual focus override, which is superbly handy and makes this a very practical lens for video shooters. As you can see though, obviously there's no optical stabilization, so a shoulder rig or a tripod or at least a monopod is going to be somewhat essential for you video shooters wanting to play with this lens. For the record, everything you're seeing in this video was shot handheld. It's just the way I roll when I'm testing lenses. Now, for stills, it's heaven in a tube. Unusually sharp right across the frame. In fact, this is one of those lenses that seems to outclass the resolving power of many cameras before it reaches its own optical limits. And that means an investment here is going to serve you incredibly well over time as it outlasts body after body after body and the ever-increasing megapixel counts on our sensors. Chromatic aberration is virtually zero, actually, and I mean from any practical purposes it will never ever be an issue. There is just the slightest amount of green magenta fringing in the most extreme of contrast areas, but even then you have to go pixel peeping and hunt any down, and if you do manage to find some, it's so minor that it's a dawdle to correct for anyway. And while most fast 50s will show a bit of pincushion distortion at the sides, which your camera may or may not be correcting for in its JPEGs but will always show through in the RAW files, I'll be damned if I could detect any at all with the Sigma. And I think I said this last time I reviewed one of Sigma's new Art series lenses, but I'm utterly convinced that there's some kind of Faustian deal, or rather dark and mysterious magics and sorcery at work here. I don't know who's doing their lens design, but whoever they are a magician. For Sigma to come along and so thoroughly eclipse the high-end offerings from the first-party teams at Nikon and Canon is just marvellous enough. But for $1,000 worth of lens from a company that just a fistful of years ago was, maybe sneered upon by many snobby shooters as just being the cheap and plastically junk for penny-pinching know-nothing amateurs, to come this close to a stalemate with Zeiss's Lord on high of lovely glassware, glass that's going to suck $4,000 or $5,000 from you just to own it, that's gobsmacking. Now, I had honestly expected this lens to be good. Quite good, in fact. Sigma have done nothing but impress me lately, and I saw no reason to expect them not to do so again. But what we have here is nothing short of the very best fast 50 you can own. Sure, the Zeiss may edge it out in the lab tests, even if just slightly, but value for money is also part of the equation here too, and no one can deliver a punch like this for this kind of money. Hell, the big boy Zeiss doesn't even have autofocus. And the Sigma is almost half the cost of Canon's own L series 50mm lens, their best of the best of the best, and it's unarguably superior in every way to that L series lens, well, except for size and weight. And that's the only negative I have to cast upon the Sigma. Its heft. It's noticeable, and maybe I've been spoiled now since my own daily driver choices have moved very solidly over to the comparatively featherweight Micro Four Thirds systems, but for those of you still firmly entrenched in DSLR land, I don't think you'll be finding a bigger bang for buck. Now, the local Aussie Sigma distributors have told me this thing is in crazy high demand. Like the astonishingly good 18 to 35mm F1.8 lens before it, if you want one of these things, you better get your ass in line with a pre-order at your favourite camera store, because it seems like it'll be a little while before you can wander in unannounced and just snatch one off the shelf stock. So my advice is to grab your camera body, head into your local favourite camera store, pray they've got a floor model of this lens you can slap on your camera and have a little play with, then plop down that pre-order money, because I'm predicting that if you try this lens, you're gonna want this lens. Thanks for watching, I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.